Hi. So thank you so much for the invitation here tonight. Really honored to obviously to be here, and thank you all for coming out too. This is really amazing. So those are some extremely profound and difficult questions that Brooke asked that are not easily answered. As she said, I come from a political research and consulting background. In a lot of ways, I am the problem. I've been trying desperately hard not to be since November. There was a lot of assumptions on the part of the political elite who has paid my salary for a long period of time that turned out to be crushingly wrong. And since the election, I've gone into overdrive to try to correct for that. One of the things I have done because of that is a really deep dive exploration, not of Trump, but of the Trump voter, then not just of the Trump voter, but of the Trump supporter. I have found it crucial to distinguish between his supporters and his voters. They always say, Richard Nixon, no matter how bad things got, even when he was kicked out of office, half of his support never left him. He consistently had 20 to 25% of the population who would not abandon him, no matter how many allegations of corruption and even attempted murder came out. Those are the hardcore partisans. They are unmovable, they are unshakable, but they are a tiny minority. Okay? At best, that is 15 to 20% of our population. The remainder of that is drawn up by who you can call the Trump voters. Their reasons for not voting for Hillary or for staying home and therefore voting with their feet are in an infinitely long list. What unites them, all of them, is they fell for a con. Everybody always loves to point out Donald Trump is a con man, and Donald Trump will even brag about how great his lies are and how much success he's had selling garbage to people for his entire career. Nobody asks the second question that comes up out of that is, what does that mean to be conned? And we have done research into people who have been conned on a personal scale, on a large scale, and there is one factor that unites people who are the victims of successful con. It isn't education, it isn't wealth, and it isn't geographic location. It is emotional need. That is the number one thing a con man looks for in his marks, is how emotionally needy is this person. Because what they know from there is, if I can present them with a solution, no matter how crazy, if I can build on that need and manipulate that need, that person is mine. And I can do whatever I want from there. And I think that is crucial for us to address, is that emotional core component that was absolutely forgotten, very sad to say, by most of the entire Democratic Party. And definitely by the Clinton campaign. And again, that pains me to say, as that was a lot of my best friends working on that. How do you address an emotional need? First of all, you find out what it is. You just talk to people. The politicians and their asshole consultants like me will talk endlessly about having a messaging strategy. We'll never talk about having a listening strategy. We'll never talk about how we're just going to go out there with an open set of ears and pay attention to what people have to say to us. We're not going to talk about their fears. We don't want to hear about their emotions. We just want to know how best to manipulate them into voting for our guy who's paying our salary. I think it's fundamental for any successful movement that it goes out there and speaks to the people it wishes to move, finds out the language that they need to hear their message in, finds out what they're most concerned about, and addresses it, and does so in a compelling manner. They always love to talk about Harvey Milk, and the way he rose up in San Francisco was not on gay rights, it was on dog shit. He could not build a coalition around gay rights in San Francisco. But what he found out from his neighbors and from listening to the community of San Francisco is they were pissed as hell about dog shit all over their city. And that was his initial big public stunt, and that delivered him into office, where he set the standard for delivering on gay rights legislation. Has become a hero and inspiration for all of us for years. I would say the other thing that we need to get at is asymmetric information. Another thing that you find out very constantly in speaking to Trump voters is a level of misinformation. I saw this myself when I was working for President Obama. We had the attitude of, oh, well, they can say any lies about us, we'll just respond with the facts. Sorry, and we honest to God thought that would be enough, and it never was. Obama himself, this man who knew more about the importance of personal narrative than arguably any other politician in our time, had no idea about how to craft a narrative that could sell his policies, that could sell his legislation, that could bring back away people from the misinformation and lies. So that's a great question then that we get to. How do you dispel a bit of misinformation? How do you dispel something that's not factual but somebody believes that is? You cannot do it with information and facts. I cannot believe I am still talking to activists all the time who say we just need to build a truthful news site and that'll take care of it. And then we just, put that out on social media and people run over to it and that'll be all good. No. The way you counter misinformation is with narrative, with emotionally compelling stories, right? That is what they heard that brought them into that space in the first place. That is what you respond with to bring them back to over where you are. And the fundamental part about emotional, powerful storytelling is it connects. And so any good storyteller is also going to be a good listener. And they're going to know how to craft a narrative and craft a story. They're going to spend the time with the audience to know how to bring them back over, away from whatever awful path they were on previously. This is the kind of work that is not being done right now. I know the guys in the Democratic Party who should be working on this, they're not. They're trying to take the temperature for what's going on right now. Howard Dean was at an event I was at not too long ago, and when asked, Howard, what can we do? His response was, I don't know. But his follow-up response was revealing. His follow-up response was, I believe the answer is going to come from the people. And it is. One of the basic truths that I've been operating on, especially recently, is how powerful true activism is. I saw it firsthand when I worked in the Obama administration, and the Tea Party tore our agenda apart. That activism shut down so many of the things we wanted to do. So many of the dreams we had were crushed by the other side's activism. There is no reason why those tactics are not available to us as well. And those who have taken them up and those who are doing them on a daily basis are racking up victories right, left, and center. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about what those victories are, but just on a large scope, single most unpopular president at this point in his presidency in history. Not by 5 points, not by 20 points, not by 10 points, but by 20 points, where the average president is. Slowest any president has ever had his cabinet confirmed. That's all because of us. I had a great conversation with Chief of Staff for a senator the other day, and he said, this is all you guys. This is all you guys. The Republicans are scared. They don't want to do anything. Our caucus, the Democrats, are united in listening to you because we're a little scared of you. All right? And I was like, good, you should be. So this can have a clear effect, but I think at the core, you have to find your way to what works best for you, speaks most to your truth, and find a way to connect that to the people who you want to reach. Thank you. Thank you. Himself mostly, but then also, so the question was.
Because he was saying Hillary wasn't listening.
Oh yeah, so.
Clarify, because it's very compelling what you're saying.
Right.
But I mean, he's a crazy narcissist. He wasn't really listening to the people.
He was though. I encourage everyone to go back and watch those early speeches. Trump is like this constant generating machine. He just says something and then watches his audience and sees what they react to. If they start to tune it out, he changes. If they start to tune that out, he changes. It's what, you know, content marketers do. They throw it out.
There's some thought that he was getting real-time responses from like on the internet to see how many hits he have for a certain.
Oh, it's a whole nother ball. Yeah, yeah. The online internet machine that was built for him
So
was,
this is
yeah.
one question. The second question is tell us a little bit about this group that did the research and like more of just a little more sort of
This group that did the sure this group that did the research for.
no your research.
Oh, my research. So you're right.
The emotional narrative and all that.
So that comes from a lot of different areas. My job working for Obama was through Joel Benenson, who was President Obama's chief pollster and then Hillary Clinton's top strategist. But I've had a lot of different mentors and storytelling and whatnot. There's a great book, Jonathan Shatshati, I think, called The Storytelling Animal, that dives deeply into the neuroscience and biology of the power of story. There's a great media strategist by the name of Mark McKinnon who talks about how to construct persuasive stories, and has a whole little matrix for how to line that up. I'm obviously happy to share with whoever wants to reach out to me. But yeah, so it comes from a lot of sources. But yeah.
But you actually did a real research, like interviewing people, going out there. I mean, this is like.
I think I've talked to like hundreds of supporters at this point. I've reviewed all of the qualitative and quantitative polling that's been done. Yeah, there was a lot of desire to understand what had happened because it caught us so far off guard. Oh, do you want me to do one more? Or should I do one?
Yeah, you can do like one more. Then
Okay.
We'll have a kind of a town hall after. Okay, do the day. Okay. I have a question. I don't know if you follow the Trump Regrets Twitter account.
Yes.
Which does this work? Trump Regrets. Does this work?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So it's a Twitter account that amalgamates all of the tweets of people who basically say, like, I voted for you and I'm ashamed, or I voted for you and I thought you were going to fix my health care, or I voted for you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm interested in whether you think there's any possibility to find common ground with people who regret voting for Trump and bring them in on a basis not of shame or of penance, but really bring them in and to the other side.
First of all, it's a great point, and it aligns so beautifully with like the con man theory too. One of the greatest powers of the con man is shame from his victims. They've had con men who've basically operated their entire lives, and nobody's ever gone against them because they're so ashamed to admit that they got conned. And so I think people who have come to the realization who it's hit them, those voices need to be amplified and they need to be empowered to share their story, so that others feel emboldened to come out with it as well. Because it's one of the great powers that a guy like Trump has, is people who are taken in will never want to admit it until we create, a path for them to do so.